The Long Line Leaves bundle includes 4 different products. You have a background stamp with the large leaf design. You also have a 6x8 stamp set, and I've obviously used this stamp. It's well loved. You'll see it on quite a few different projects. This is a 6x8 stamp, and you've got the 2 kind of outline leaves, 2 smaller solid leaves, and then a bunch of little texture elements that you can add to your cards. In the die set that coordinates, it cuts out the 2 smaller solid leaves, plus there are 4 like really intricate greetings, as well as the outer shadow layer. And then we have a stencil set. Now this is a 6x6 stencil set. There are 6 stencils, and you're going to be able to do kind of a 2-tone leaf, like 2 different colors on both of the larger outline leaves, plus the full background. So I'm going to open this up and kind of show you the stencils because they're set up in a fun way. So the first, let's see, these. Well, I've got these 2 right here. You put them together and it creates the really large leaf. You can stencil those all together. On this individual stencil, it is the smaller leaf. So you'll get it lined up like that. And then all you have to do is slide over and get the other leaves as well. And there are etch lines on there to help you line things up. So you've got the 2 larger outline leaves on the 6x8 stamp set. And then you have the 2 segments for the background stamp. So you have 2 different colors of leaves, but then also you have the full background design in case you wanted to do it all in one go. Now I did want to mention that when you use the stencils with the stamps, because the stamps are clear polymer material, sometimes the stamp can kind of stretch and warp either in manufacturing or when you remove it from the sheet when you're going to stamp. So I'm going to show you some footage on screen where I was using the stencils. They're really easy to use and they do match up with the stamps, but you will most likely need to move your stencil around as you're adding your ink to make sure that it lines up a little bit more precisely. It's not too hard to do. You can just slide that around and move it as you go. Okay, so let's look at some cards using this bundle. In this first card, I used the background stamp with the stencils as well as one of the die sentiments. So I cut the shadow outer die in gold, and then the greeting itself is in white. Here's a large 5x7 card where I used the outline stamps from the 6x8 stamp set, and I stamped it over a paper pieced background of cardstock. I just did cardstock strips and then stamped and heat embossed on top. Paired that with a nice stacked greeting from the dies. This next one was really fun and it features that texture stamp. I used the solid leaves to create a colorful kind of border on the left-hand side of the card. I then did gold heat embossing for all those little texture spots and finished it off with a die cut sentiment. The shadow layer was die cut out of white and the greeting out of gold. Okay, so these feature mostly just that bundle, but I did use these stamps, dies, and stencils on a bunch of other cards as well. So I'm going to show this to you now so you can spot them. I used the background stamp for this kind of tone-on-tone set in the background. This is actually Tide Pool cardstock, and I used Tide Pool ink for the stamping. And I just stamped it multiple times to make sure that it was nice and dark and would show up for that background. For this card, I did the really large stamp from the 6x8 stamp set, plus the stencils for kind of that 2-tone ink blending, some darker leaves, some lighter leaves. Here's another with that background. This time I stamped on ballet slipper cardstock. So I started with a very pale pink cardstock, stamped the leaves. I think these were actually in the color evergreen, and then ink blended some other green tones on top. Here's a card with the solid leaves and the die cut greeting. I stamped these solid leaves and then used the coordinating dies to cut them out. For this card, I used the stencil that has the full design for the background, And I just did kind of a rainbow blending all the way up for the top portion of this 5x7 card. The stencil design itself does not stretch to 7 inches for a 5x7 card, so I did it just in this top section and added a band of white cardstock at the bottom. That's a great way to kind of stretch your smaller backgrounds for a 5x7 card. And one more card featuring this bundle. I used the smaller of the large outline stamps, did some stenciling for coloring in those leaves, and then I also stamped the texture little kind of spot stamp over the top. And then I used the die cut greeting and I stacked it multiple times to give it a little bit of weight and a little bit of shadow when it's on the card. So this is the Long Line Leaves bundle. Lots of products included in this one. There's 4 products total. You can really stretch this bundle to a lot of different cards.